Today on the SSL Family Dad channel, I'm going to show you 3 ways to preserve your tomatoes. Alright, so this happens to us every year. Probably one of the biggest mistakes that gardeners make. You grow a bunch of food, you start your seedlings inside, you get real excited in February and March and April, you plant your garden, you put the sprinklers out, you water it, you care for it, you weed it, and then it comes time and all of a sudden life is busy, all these things are happening at once. You've got peppers coming in, you've got cucumbers coming in, you've got peas coming in, you've got beans, you've got tomatoes, you've got all these things happening, and half of it ends up going to waste because you don't get it preserved in time. So today I'm going to show you 3 ways to easily preserve tomatoes. So we have a lot of different varieties here, mostly Romas that are ready. We also have some black crims with some best boys or better boys, and a few other varieties around here that beefsteaks and others. We're going to be just harvesting whatever's ready, and we're preserving it all together. So we're not very picky about what kind of tomatoes are going to go into this. Romas are best for these things just because they have the most amount of meat in them and the least amount of water and seed, but any tomatoes will work. So let's go ahead and get some tomatoes harvested here and then get inside and show you what we're doing to preserve our harvest. So we have somewhere around 75 tomato plants out here, I believe. These are all of our Romas, and then we've got some of the better boys or best boys back there. And the black crims really aren't ready yet, but there's some of those in there also. And so we're going to be just going through and picking what we have ready. So as I'm harvesting here, I'm just kind of inspecting the tomatoes a little bit, just make sure that they don't have signs of blossom end rot, you know, black ends on the bottom side of them here. Or some of them will have worm holes in them or bite marks from our wonderful ducks that came through here and bit off some of these, and so we'll set those ones aside. One of the nice things about having our pig so close to the garden is that everything just gets chucked right over to him, so I don't really need to go far to get rid of the bad ones. That one fell short. Looks like our ducks have been in here. Here you go, George. Here you go. Not a bad haul for today. Alright, so once you have harvested all your tomatoes, one of the worst mistakes that we always make, or we have made in the past, is we have so many tomatoes coming in and we just don't have enough time. Life is busy, and we end up wasting a lot of them. They just end up going to waste, they end up going to the animals, we can't get them processed or preserved in time. And that's very frustrating. And one of the big deterrents, I think, for us was always having to blanch the tomatoes. So having to go through the process of blanching the tomatoes and getting the skins off, and then any of these mushy, you know, tomatoes to deal with. Yeah, it takes a lot of time.
It does. And we get a lot of tomatoes, and who has time to take an entire day to process them?
Exactly, or several days. So what we've come up with, we have the 3 best ways to process and preserve tomatoes. And the first way is kind of a favorite recipe of ours. We like to make a lot of salsa. We use it throughout the year. We can use it in, you know, Mexican recipes or whatever, or just as snacks. And so salsa is a great thing to make. We have usually onions about the same time, which goes in that recipe, as well as green peppers, cilantro, and tomatoes.
And tomatoes.
And some seasonings and things like that. So when all those things are ready in the garden, we can start making a lot of salsa. So our number one way is to make those tomatoes right into a recipe. And the recipe that we use for salsa is pretty easy. I mean, the tomato processing itself, you don't have to blanch them or anything.
Nope, not at all. We just puree everything in the food processor. Our KitchenAid is awesome for that.
Yeah, the food processor makes a huge difference. So usually what we do is, wash the tomatoes off, cut them in half, scoop the seeds out, throw them in the food processor with the rest of the ingredients, and make the salsa. At that point, you can eat it fresh, or of course you can can it, which is what we like to do. Just make as much as we can at once until we run out of, onions or green peppers or tomatoes, and then we'll can all that we have at that time. You can do the same thing with making spaghetti sauces or pizza sauces or other tomato-based recipes. If you have all the ingredients to make your recipe right away, go ahead and make it and then process that stuff right away. You can make spaghetti sauce without blanching tomatoes also. The skins are fine. We don't use any pesticides or herbicides or anything. The skins are not sprayed. So, washing them off and using them right in the recipe has never been an issue for us.
The second way that we found to use up all of these tomatoes that we get is to pulverize it into something called tomato puree with our KitchenAid processor. Now, the reason why we chose to do this is tomato puree makes an awesome base for everything that we use tomatoes for.
Yeah.
We cook a lot of homemade pizza, so the pizza sauce, spaghetti sauce, pasta sauce for lasagnas, chili. So to get these tomatoes processed so that they don't go rotten on us, we just like the process for the salsa. We just cut the tops off, cut them in half.
No blanching.
No blanching.
No blanching.
We scoop out the seeds and that inside stuff, throw it into the food processor. So after it goes in the food processor, then we just can it to preserve it.
So the third way that you can process tomatoes, so this is if you are really short on time, if you're in a crunch and you just need to harvest and you need to get things preserved as quickly as possible, which has happened to us many times. You got extra tomatoes and you just don't have time to can because it does take a lot of extra time. You can freeze them. There's lots of different ways to freeze tomatoes, and looking around online, there's lots of different ways to do that. But I think the best way is, again, to concentrate on using a tomato puree. So you can either just blend them up into a puree and then freeze that right in Ziploc bags. You can put it in there nice and flat in a bunch of Ziploc bags, and they'll stack right on top of each other in the freezer, and you can freeze like a quart at a time. So you can also just take your tomatoes, core them, and use the same process that we use for basically all the other ways. You're gonna cut them, scoop the seeds out, and then just take the halves or the quarters and throw those in some Ziploc bags, freezer bags, and then just freeze them that way. And then whenever you're ready to make the tomato puree, you can take them out and thaw them, and you can run them through the processor, the food processor or blender, and then make a tomato puree out of that, which again you can make into spaghetti sauce or lasagna sauce or chilies, or you can put it in whatever you want to that way. Those three ways are really the best ways that we have found to process this amount of tomatoes. Now, if you have time to blanch and get the skins off and like make spaghetti sauces and things like that, and you want there's nothing wrong with that. But when you're doing, I mean, how many tomatoes did we process today?
About 300. And when you put in all the time of starting seeds, watering, pruning,
weeding,
tying them up, you don't want to waste this. And this is what's happened to us every year. We're very busy. We have lives and kids, and we volunteer at church a lot, and it just seems like this is what's always hung us up. The food that we've grown goes to waste. It's just a great way. This is what we found to just get it in the freezer, get it preserved as quick as possible.
And actually freezing is kind of the best way to go. Just doing some research that we were doing on this, freezing really preserves most of the nutrients. So it actually is the best way to go. Now you're going to usually cook your sauces anyway, but the more you cook things, the more nutrients that you're going to lose. So if you can freeze a lot of your stuff, there's nothing wrong with that. Freezing it and using it when you're ready to make your whatever you're going to make. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video today. Lots of tomato fun. We have lots more tomatoes to process throughout the year. I mean, it's mid-August, and we'll be getting tomatoes all the way through September, so every week we'll probably have to do some of this. And freezing is probably going to be the way to go, I think, for a lot of it.
But I hope so.
Yeah. So As always, guys, we'd love to have you follow along. Subscribe to our channel. We are a new farm here in Michigan, just trying to make it as farmers, and we'd love to have you along for the journey. Hit the subscribe button and the bell next to it. Thumbs up, you remember?
Thumbs up. Mm-hmm.
Don't forget to hit thumbs up. Makes a huge difference for the videos, guys. We always appreciate it. As always, thanks for watching. Have a good one.